Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Buns. Welcome to the Legion class overview for Priest. Now, going into Legion, Priest is one of the many classes that got a serious revamp across the board. Holy, Disc, and Shadow got major changes, very much separates all three of the specs, very unique from one another. So, we're going to kick it off today. I'm going to start with Holy, then go to Disc and Spriest. I think Holy and the Disc are the two classes, especially for healers looking out there, that people are going to want to see the differences between the two. But Spriest is a lot of fun. I'm actually really excited about talking about Priest, even though I've never played one before. I'm actually super excited about it. There's a lot of different changes. So, let's jump into it. We'll start off with Holy Priest. Now, with Holy Priest, the idea behind Holy now is that all of your heals are going to be either single target heals, AoE heals, or heals over times. So your big heals that you have, your general heals, is you have Renew, which let me find it here. You have Renew, and it instantly heals them for about 14k, and then it puts a hot over time, and it does about 80k over time. Pretty good hot. Main ability you have there. You also have Flash Heal, which is your more expensive mana heal, faster casted, and it heals for 114k. Then you also have Heal, which in your honor talents you can spec into Greater Heal, which I did. It just doesn't show up because I'm not in PvP combat, but that is your more efficient heal to use. It's just slower casted, and if you go into Greater Heal like I chose, it gives an extra 200% healing, so it's a really chunky heal. It just costs a little bit more mana, but I think it's worth it. There's some other cool talents you can choose in that row if you want to go that way, which increases your Renew, or your Prayer Mending instant cast. It's available to you. I like the Greater Heal build. Also, going with that too, similar to Rogue in a way, with Outlaw, how you get Roll the Bones and you can get your True Bearings buff, which, as a reminder for you guys that didn't watch the Rogue video, the True Bearings buff resets your cooldowns per combo point spend. There's a really cool passive with Holy Priest called Serendipity. I'll just read it all the way out for you guys. When you cast Flash Heal or Heal, the remaining cooldown on Holy Word Serenity is reduced by 6 seconds. So, why don't we break down what Holy Word Serenity is? Holy Word Serenity is an instant cast heal that heals someone for about 500k. So, after you use that, it's a minute cooldown, which is not too bad. But after you use that, you can use your Flash Heal and your Greater Heal, or your Heal, to refresh the cooldown. And you can see it's coming off cooldown very quickly. So, very efficient. You'll be able to use that often as you're cycling through your abilities. Now, the second part of Serendipity, when you cast Prayer of Healing, the remaining cooldown on Holy Word Sanctify is reduced by 6 seconds. Now, Holy Word Sanctify is an AoE heal that heals up to 6 allies within 10 yards for 150k. And basically what you can do is you can drop it like a Nova. So you can drop it on people. I'll drop it on myself here, and it heals everyone in that area, 6 people for 150k. You can refresh that ability with Prayer of Mending, or excuse me, Prayer of Healing, which Prayer of Healing is an instant, or not instant cast, excuse me. It's a casted heal that heals everyone within 20 yards for about 50-60k. Pretty good heal. And it makes sense that recharges it, right? Because it's an AoE ability, it recharges your AoE instant cast heal. Good way to remember it. And then finally, the last part of your Serendipity is when you cast Smite, the remaining cooldown on Holy Word Chastise is reduced by 6 seconds. So, you have Chastise. I personally went into a spec as well too that makes my Chastise a stun rather than incapacitate, which I think is probably the best option unless you're in a comp situation where you want to benefit from Spirit of the Redemption, which we can get into a little bit later. So you use your Chastise, and then you can use your Smite after that and refresh the cooldown on Chastise. So Serendipity is a huge part of Holy Priest going into it. I really like that dynamic. I think it allows for a lot of creativity in how you want to manage your abilities to deal with cooldown usage and cycling through them efficiently. Very cool part of Holy Priest. For someone that doesn't play healer, that looks very appealing. I like that build a lot. Now, some of my talents that I went to here, you can just have a look. Your single target heals renew your renew, which is pretty nice. I chose that one. There's a few other cool ones here if you're using Flash of Light a lot. What it basically does is it makes the last person you heal with Flash of Light get 40% of the heal that you now use with your Flash of Light on someone else. So it like doubles up by like 50% basically, which is pretty cool. Body and Mind, this is basically your speed movement tree. I used this one, which is Body and Mind, which is a hot over time. And it also increases your healing, or your movement speed by 40%, which I thought was pretty cool. Other than that, the only really recognizable one that I thought was awesome was this one, which is Light of the Naru, which basically took the serendipity effect that we were just talking about to reset your cooldown, and every time you cast one of these abilities, it takes another 2 seconds off of it, which is awesome. So, if I go ahead and use my Holy Word Serenity, which is our single target 500k heal, and then I start casting Flash Heal, you can see it's reducing it by 8 seconds per, so it goes from 44 to 36. It's a pretty big deal. I thought that that one was awesome for rotating cooldowns, so I personally went with that. And then finally, the big last one that you get is Apotheosis. Apotheosis basically makes it so your heals refresh your serendipity effect by a lot. So let's go ahead and use Chastise. And then we start smiting. And you can see how quickly our Chastise is coming out. Really, really fast, which is awesome. So you can help rotate through that as well too. And also if you want to use your AoE heal here, and then you use Prayer of Healing, it reduces that very quickly. If you're actually using the healing spells, it'll be a little bit faster as well too, for your respected Holy Word, Serenity, Sanctify, or Chastise. So, very cool build as well too. The big cooldowns that you have, other than that, is you have Divine Hymn, which is a channeled hymn that heals everyone in your area for 70k damage over time, everyone in your generic area, but it also increases the healing done to them by 10 seconds. Now, your artifact weapon as well too, Light of Cheer. When you cast it on someone, it's an 80k heal, but it also increases the amount of healing they take by 25%, or 25%, and it has 2 charges. So you could stack that with your Divine Hymn, and you can get a lot of bonus healing going on there. I think it's very cool. I'm very much looking forward to actually playing Priest. I'm hedging between either playing a Shaman right now or a Priest. It's such a close call right now, but I think Holy Priest is a very cool spec nonetheless, and I think it's going to offer a lot to play with. So, there's your overview for Priest. Instant cast heals, instant cast hots, AoE healing, and some big cooldowns to help rotate your Holy Words and be able to rotate those cooldowns to help your teammates. So, that's your breakdown on Holy Priest. Now, going into Discipline Priest. Disc got a pretty big change as well to their toolkit. So, opposite to how Priest works, how Disc Priest works is they want you to heal people through bubbles, a little bit of single target healing, and also atonement. So, let's go through the passives first. Atonement is probably the biggest passive you're going to worry about if you play a Disc Priest, so I'll read it to you. Plea, Power Word Shield, Shadow Mend, and Power Word Radiance also apply atonement to your target. When you deal spell damage, you instantly heal all targets affected by atonement for 49.1% of the damage done. So basically, if I cast a shield on myself, and I start smiting this target, I'm getting healed for some of that damage that I'm doing, which is pretty cool, because how it ends up adding up is that if you can spread your atonement AoE through either using bubbles or using some AoE effects as well too, you'll have atonement up on multiple targets, and as you're doing damage, you're actually healing the people next to you as well too. And for my Priest, I kind of went with a damage build, so I'm playing with Schism, which is in your first row of talents. And it does 100k damage, but it also increases the damage that you do afterwards by 6 seconds by 30%, which is a lot of damage, I would say. It's a very short cooldown. It's a 6-second cooldown, so you can pretty much use it off a cooldown and have the buff up the entire time. I thought it's pretty helpful. I like playing aggressive, so that's the build I decided to go with. But you also have an option in the first row, is if you feel like you're going to fall behind on healing, you can also choose the Penitent, which makes your penance heal people instead of damaging. So right now, currently, Penance only damages people unless you spec into it, which I think is a big change for people that play Disc Priest. So, if you want to have the heal from Penance, you have to spec into it in your first row. Keep that in mind when you're playing. Now, a cool thing about Priest 2 and one of their passives that also works for Holy as well is you get Focus Will. Now, Focus Will reduces the damage you take by 15% for 8 seconds when people are hitting you with melee attacks, and it can stack up to 2 times. So you can take 30% less damage from melee, which I think is really strong for Priest, considering that that's what they're most susceptible to, being a cloth target. I think that that's going to be very helpful for Priest in their build, and I'm interested to see how that plays out. To me, even though I don't play a lot of Priest, and I don't heal at all at endgame, this has pretty much been my only experience playing Priest. From what I've seen on beta so far, it seems that Priest is one of the healers right now that people are like, yeah, I don't know about. It's kind of meh, so-so. But I do think that Disc has an incredibly high skill cap when it comes to being able to manage your atonements on targets and then be able to put out as much damage as possible. Like, I could see Disc Priest doing very well in a burst comp. Something with, like, RMP or maybe Priest Monk Mage and some very bursty comps. I think that Priest could do pretty well depending on how you sync up your damage. Now, some other cool abilities that you have. Light's Wrath, which is your artifact weapon, draws upon the power of the Light's Wrath, dealing 180k damage to the target, increased by 10% per ally affected with your atonement. So, once again, atonement's a huge part of your build. So how you can get atonement again on your targets? You can use it through Shadow Mend, which Shadow Mend is a heal that you can do. It's your casted heal, but it's at a price and it puts a dot on you. So initially it heals you for 180k, but over time you take 90k damage for doing that heal. So basically with Disc Priest is they want you to get away from single target healing, but if you have to do it, Shadow Mend is there for you. I also took Clarity of Will, which is part of your talent tree. I think it's in your second to last row. Yeah. Your second to last row. Clarity of Will is also another big heal that you can use, and it puts about a 200k bubble on someone. Pretty nice. It also stacks as well a little bit too, to help build that shield up a bit, which is helpful. Doesn't stack more than twice, but you can do that as well too. You also have your Power Word Shield, and Power Word Shield actually puts atonement on people. So it's being able to manage your atonement, keep your teammates up, and put out the pressure. As soon as you start falling behind on your atonements, I think is when Priest starts falling behind. But you do have a few cooldowns that can help you through that. First and foremost being Rapture. What Rapture does is it makes your Power Word Shield have no cooldown for 11 seconds. So if you need to top your teammates up, there's no debuff anymore for putting a shield on someone. You can literally just spam Rupture. Or excuse me, you can spam Power Word Shield. See, I'm doing it on myself right now. You can see the cooldown refreshing, which is pretty cool. If you need to top up your teammates and get atonement spread out pretty quickly, that's available to you as well too. You also have Power Word Radiance, which is an AoE heal that heals for about 60k, and everyone within 20 yards is going to get affected by this heal, and Atonement's going to be put on them. So more than anything, even though it's not really a big heal, it does put Atonement on all your teammates that are nearby to help you be able to get that buff up so you can do big damage with your abilities, because all your damage is going to be buffed per target you have Atonement on, which is pretty considerable. Finally, some of the last big cooldowns that you have is Pain Suppression, reduces all damage taken by a friendly target by 40% for 8 seconds, and nice catch to it is you can use it while you're stunned. So if you get locked down, team's stunning you and they're going for a DPS, or they're stunning you and they're trying to put the kill on you, you can use Pain Suppression while you're in that stun, which I think is very helpful. You also have Shadow Fiend, which does pretty considerable damage. It hits for about 40 to 50k, which is pretty nice considering it's a pet on a 3-minute cooldown. There's also an upgrade you can go into that in your talent tree that allows you to upgrade your Shadow Fiend into Mindbender. And this is in your mana efficiency row, in your 60 row. I chose Power Word Shield, and basically every time that your Power Word Shield's completely absorbed, you get 1% of your mana back. You could also go with Mindbender if you want to have something a little bit more, a little bit more bursty. You can go that way too, and it's every attack that they do for the next 12 seconds. So there's some different options. I think that Priest has a lot of different builds. I went with a very aggressive build with Schism. Psychic Voice is very cool. You also reduce the cooldown of your Psychic Scream, which I should note. Disc Priest has Psychic Scream, Holy Priest has Chastise, but they do not overlap. So that is your specific CC per spec. Kind of making a little bit more individual flavor again when you're considering choosing the 2 specs. And then also I think an interesting choice too is in your 75 row. You can either choose Power Infusion, which increases your haste on a 2-minute cooldown by 25%, and reduces the mana cost of all your spells by 20%. Or you could go with Twist of Fate, and when a target's below 35% health, you get 20% increased damage and 20% increased healing for 10 seconds, which I think that's a very interesting choice there. So if you're playing in a comp where you're behind the whole time, you might want to go Twist of Fate. But if you feel like things are going to be bursty, or you could benefit from having a little bit more mana efficiency and haste cooldowns, you can absolutely go with Power Infusion. So, some pretty interesting cooldown choices that you can make and talent choices with this Priest. I like the build a lot. I went pretty aggro, but that's just who I am. I like playing an aggro person. I don't like doing damage much, or excuse me, I don't like doing healing much, man. I just want to go in and pump people. So, if I end up playing my Disc Priest, you know what spec I'll be playing, eh, boys? Alright, so, finally, going into Spriest. Now, I have to say, this is the kicker. Spriest is so much fun, man. Spriest just might be the most OP caster right now, but it is also one of the most fun casters. So, some of the abilities that help make this spec really cool. Let's explain first and foremost how they reworked the Priest energy tree. Why don't we put it as that? So, looking at Vampiric Touch, which has been baseline a big spell for Shadow Priest for a very long time, you can see that you generate 4 Insanity. Now, Insanity is your new energy pool. You also have mana as well too, but mana is pretty much irrelevant for this Priest. It's mainly focusing on Insanity. So, your Insanity comes from all of your abilities. So, Vampiric Touch puts a dot over time on the target, but now it also heals the Priest as well too for 50% of the damage dealt. There's also a spec that you can go into that increases the healing done by your Vampiric Touch. I believe it's in your Honor talents if you have 2 or more Vampiric Touches up, which is a nice route to go if you want to go that way. And then you also have your Shadow Word Pain. So what you're going to be doing on your Shadow Priest a lot of the time is getting your dots rolling on targets. And I went into Mind Spike. It's a talent that I chose. And Mind Spike replaces Mind Flay. Otherwise, you would have Mind Flay. And Mind Flay, it's not that it's bad, but I like the buff that Mind Spike did. And what it does is when you hit someone for 10k damage, which is, I mean, it's okay. But you leave a debuff on them. And at 10 stacks, it works like this. When you use your Mind Blast, it explodes for 220k damage. So I'll show that. It does a huge amount of damage, 220k, and then all targets in that area also get hit for part of that damage. About half. A little less than half. Pretty big burst. I like that build personally, so I went with that. And in the last row as well, too, I felt like that was probably the best one to go. You could go Legacy of the Void for when you want to use your Power Eruption, but I'll get into that in a second here. Now, I also chose Fortress of the Mind in my first row. So Fortress of the Mind was something that really appealed to me. And what it does is it makes your Mind Spike and your Mind Blast deal 10% more damage, generates 20% more Insanity. So your Insanity basically is all pooled up till you get to 100. And when you get to 100, you have an ability called Void Eruption, which you guys can see is lit up down below. Now, I'll read this to you. Releases an explosive blast of pure void energy, activating Void Form and causing 32,000 shadow damage to all enemies afflicted by your Shadow Word Pain or Vampiric Touch. So it does some damage right off the bat when you use it, but what it also does is it activates your Void Form. And when you go into Void Form, Void Eruption is replaced by Void Bolt, which your Void Belt is an instant cast spell that's on a very short cooldown that does damage, refreshes your dots on the target, and generates a lot of Insanity. I believe it's 16. So, what you want to do ideally... oh, there's one more talent I want to show you guys really quickly if I can find it. I think it's Shadowy Insight? Yeah. So, Shadowy Insight. What you want to do is, pretty much on a Spriest, you're going to be wanting to spread your dots on the targets between your Vampiric Touch and your Shadow Word Pain. And your Shadow Word Pain has a chance, if you're spec'ing to Shadowy Insight, to make you have instant proc Mind Blasts right there, which do good damage considering that I'm also spec'ing to Fortress of the Mind to combo with that damage and give me more Insanity per. So it's giving me 14 Insanity every time that procs, and it's instant cast, so it's really fun. It also resets the cooldown on it as well too if it is on cooldown, so it's very efficient. So here's what you want to do. You want to get dots up on as many targets as you can that's manageable before you go into your Void Form. Then, we're going to activate our Void Form with Void Eruption. When we do that, we're going to chain it in to using Mind Blast to keep our insanity. Now, when we're in Void form, you get drained on your insanity while you're using it. So you have to try to use your abilities to keep up with the damage that you're doing. So, using my Void form here, my Void Bolt, but I also have an artifact weapon right here, my Void Torrent, which basically does a channel of damage while I'm in my Void form, but during that time, it completely pauses how much insanity is drained. And the farther that you get, the deeper that you get into your Void form, the longer you've been in it, the more insanity you drain per second. So, Void Torrent is very good to use when you're out of instant proc Mind Blast or you don't have Void Bolt off cooldown and you need some filler time to be able to sustain yourself and get yourself some little extra seconds on the clock before your Void form runs out. Because what happens at the end of your Void form is you get a buff. And for every second you are able to stay in your Void form, you get 1% haste. So maximizing your time in Void form is huge because all of your casts are significantly increased afterwards to be able for you to do more efficient damage the whole time. I think Spriest is so much fun, and between making an Ellie Shaman or a Spriest, I'm really torn right now, guys. I do not know what I'm going to play. They're both so much fun. We'll just have to see. They're both so rewarding. Like, I love playing casters where you get instant procs based on your builds. It just feels very rewarding. So, I'm going to go through this one more time. We'll go through our Void form one more time because that was kind of fast. So what you want to do is get your dots up on everyone. And you can see I have an instant proc Mind Blast ready to go. I'm going to use it right now. I'm going to cast my Void Eruption. And then keep in mind, too, I have instant proc Mind Blasts that are being triggered from having all of my dots up from before. And you can see they're procking up a lot. Now use your Void Bolt as well too to refresh the dots on your target. Very helpful, very efficient if you want to keep the dots rolling, which are giving you instant Mind Block press. Whoa. Mind Blast procs. Holy diarrhea of the mouth. But you get the idea. So that's your overview for Priest. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm really having a good time with Shadow Priest, and I could see myself maybe messing around with Holy or Discipline too, but I have to say I'm having a really good time with Shadow Priest. The final thing that I would want to note here is some of your big CDs. You also have Dispersion, which reduces the damage you take by 60% for 6 seconds, and here's a kicker too. It also, similar to your artifact weapon, it also pauses your insanity drain while you are in your Void form. So if you want to be really greedy and get that extra haste percentage at the end, you can do that as well too. Chaining it with your artifact weapon to get 10 seconds at the very end of your Void form. 10 extra % haste is pretty huge. And you also have Vampiric Embrace, which increases your shadow energy by 15 seconds. And the next instant cast heal you do will also heal a nearby ally for 40% of the damage you do with a single target spell. Pretty cool abilities, helpful for you on the defensive end. But really, and finally, first and foremost, the last thing that's very OP with Spriest. We had a few more things to cover. Holy cow. One thing that you want to know, this is an honor talent. I'm glad I didn't forget this one. So, Void Shield. This took a little bit of a nerf recently. It used to be 50%, but basically how it works is when you cast Power Word Shield on yourself, all the damage you deal for the next 5 seconds will come back to you as healing. So basically, if you're taking damage, you want to be spamming Power Word Shield on yourself and then using damage on the target, and it'll actually be healing you for a third of the damage that you do. Pretty nutty right now. Definitely deserved the nerf, and they did. It used to be 50%. They brought it down to 33. Pretty nutty. So, now that we're really finished with everything, I'm very excited for Shadow Priest, man. I'm chomping at the bit to make one. I'm going to have to get myself to level 1 before Legion hits, I think. It's either between that or an Ellie Shaman for me. I've just had so much fun on both of those casters, man. The instant procs make it so entertaining and you feel really involved with the class. So, went on a little bit more of a longer rant than I wanted to there, but I want to make sure I covered some of the fun things at the very end. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. It's been awesome doing the series. We only got like 5 or 6 more classes to go with the rest of the Legion Overview series, and I'll have it out before Legion starts so you guys can figure out what class you want to play, where to go. I know I'm having a lot of fun with this, and it's also helping me learn for some of the classes that I already play, like what to look out for ability-wise in some of the other classes. So, thank you guys for watching. Drop a comment if you got anything. Thank you for the support. I will catch you guys later tomorrow night with another class overview. Keep it easy, homies. Peace.